Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books welcomes author Chris Whitaker, who will discuss his debut novel, We Begin at the End. You've probably seen this book everywhere. Chris will be in conversation with me. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of Chris and Henry Holt Books, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. We offer curbside pickup and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world even. We are very happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. We hope that you enjoy this event, and we hope that you support Left Bank Books by purchasing a signed copy for you or for your friends at left-bank.com. And look at how well that is. Like the signature, the book, everything is gorgeous. Purchasing a copy of the book from Left Bank Books allows us to keep our bookstore and staff operating, and it allows us to keep this event series going. So thank you for your support. I am Shane Mullen. I am the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I help produce our hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. We will be taking questions from you, the audience, actually throughout the event, because I am the one that is in conversation. I will sneak in those questions kind of as they fit into the conversation. So type in your questions as a comment at any point in time through the conversation. Be sure to follow Left Bank Books on Facebook to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. We have a ton of incredible events already lined up for the year and are adding events daily. And now about tonight's fantastic book, We Begin at the End. With We Begin at the End, Chris Whitaker has written an extraordinary novel about people who deserve so much more than life serves them. At times devastating, with flashes of humor and hope throughout, it is ultimately an inspiring tale of how the human spirit prevails and how, in the end, love, in all its different guises, wins. There are two different kinds of families, the ones we are born into and the ones we create. Walk has never left the coastal California town where he grew up. He may have become the chief of police, but he's still trying to heal the old wound of having given the testimony that sent his best friend, Vincent King, to prison decades before. Now, 30 years later, Vincent is being released. Duchess is a 13-year-old self-proclaimed outlaw. Her mother, Star, grew up with Walk and Vincent. Walk is in overdrive trying to protect them, but Vincent and Star seem bent on sliding deeper into self-destruction. Star always burned bright, but recently that light has dimmed, leaving Duchess to parent not only her mother, but her 5-year-old brother. At school, the other kids make fun of Duchess. Her clothes are torn, her hair is a mess, but let them throw sticks, because she'll throw stones. Rules are for other people. She's just trying to survive and keep her family together. A 40-something-year-old sheriff and a 13-year-old girl may not seem to have a lot in common, but they both have come to expect that people will disappoint you. Loved ones will leave you, and if you open your heart, it will be broken. So when trouble arrives with Vincent King, Walk and Duchess find they will be unable to do anything but usher it in, arms wide closed. Wally Lamb, the New York Times bestselling author of I Know This Much Is True, says, two damaged children, one timid and sweet, the other foul-mouthed and furious, will break readers' hearts in this well-plotted and perfectly paced novel. If, like me, you love stories that kidnap your intended schedule because you can't not keep turning the pages, then I wholeheartedly recommend Chris Whitaker's We Begin at the End. And Louise Penny, the #1 New York Times best-selling author, says, I loved this book. From the riveting plot to the beautiful writing, but mostly what kept me longing to get back to it each day were the characters, especially young Duchess. Fierce, brave, vulnerable, she leaps off the page fully formed, as does Walk. How aptly named. A chief of police on his own exorable journey. This is a book to read and reread and an author to be celebrated. And about tonight's author. Chris Whitaker lives in the United Kingdom with his wife and 3 young children. When not writing, he works part-time at a local library where he gets to surround himself with books. His own authored books include Tall Oaks and All the Wicked Girls. And now, without further ado, I would love to welcome our guest for the evening, Chris Whitaker, for Left Bank Books. Hello.
Hi. That was really good, Shane. That was a really good opening.
A lot of big words in there.
I know, you did really well. I thought it was great. It was very cool to hear the quotes read aloud like that. I was sitting here enjoying it.
We already have comments from the audience. A former local bookseller is in the audience tonight and has said, Vicky says, this has entered the halls of my favorite books. And every bookseller that I have talked to agrees that they have picked up this book, they have read this book, and they have loved this book. And booksellers are not alone. I did find out today that your book debuted at number 14 on the New York Times bestseller list. So congratulations.
Thank you. I know. I got the email just about 10 minutes before I logged into you. So I think that makes me a New York Times bestselling author, which is yeah, it's kind of well, I'm going to tell it. I'm going to go all arrogant. I've decided. You know, my kids can't look me in the eye at breakfast from now on because they're not worthy of my greatness. No, I'm thrilled. You know, absolutely blown away by the support, and sometimes I feel a long way away. You know, because I'm in a cabin at the end of my garden just outside of London, and you're 4,000 miles away, and it's easy to feel disconnected, but I felt the love. You know, it's lovely. It's just been, yeah, beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah. And your book is also the #1 Indie Next staff pick. So that's fantastic. I know that I voted for it.
Yes, I'm just so grateful. You know, Amy, my amazing editor, sent me the email saying that it was not the #1 pick a while ago, and I get the emails overnight because of the time difference. So I wake up like half asleep and check my phone most mornings, and then get my wife to pinch me to check that I'm not dreaming, because it's just crazy, isn't it? It's yeah, people have taken to the story in a way that I kind of dreamed that they would. Yeah, lovely.
So let's start by talking a little bit about the backstory of the book. So what led you to write this tale? Okay,
so it's gonna sound like I'm giving you my life story, but it's relevant, Shane, to the book. Okay, so I was not good at school, not academic at all, didn't do any kind of creative writing or anything like that, and didn't give writing any thought really. I'd always been a big reader, but I messed up my exams because I preferred to concentrate on going out with my friends and getting drunk and things like that. So I went out and did just that the night before my economics exam, and then woke up in hospital the next day, and so missed the exam and failed. And I didn't know what to do after that, because all my friends were heading off to university, and some of them wanted to be doctors and lawyers, and I was kind of just, you know, just treading water, just trying to work out what I wanted to do. It seemed like too big a thing to decide when you're that age. So I went and did a ton of different jobs, you know, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I did some bar work, which we were talking about before, because we both love working behind a bar. It's a lot of fun, but very tiring. And then I worked in a bakery, in a supermarket, sold electrical cabling. I had tons of jobs. And I was working as a real estate agent, and I was out dropping leaflets through people's doors in North London. And it was quite early in the morning, and the streets were quiet, and someone came up to me and asked to borrow my phone. And I knew I was going to get mugged, because I'd grown up in London. All my friends had been mugged. It was a strange request, and he looked like he was going to mug me. And then he asked for my wallet. And I was 19, and you know, when you're kind of full of bravado at that age, you know, and a bit fearless, and don't really realize what the world is like. So I thought, oh, I'll fight him off, you know, I might get a black eye or something like that. And so we were kind of struggling, and then he pulled out a kitchen knife and stabbed me in the side a few times. And I didn't realize at the time that I'd been stabbed. I felt like I was being punched because the adrenaline was kind of kicked in, and I didn't really feel the pain. But I looked down and I was wearing a white shirt, and I just saw the blood everywhere. So I dropped my phone, dropped my wallet. He dropped the knife because he was trying to like stab me in the chest as well, and I managed to grab hold of his hand, and it was really violent, like brutal attack, and he picked up everything and ran off, and I was just fortunately was very close to the hospital, and so jumped in my car and drove myself there, and then they stitched me back together again. And so physically I have scars, which I still have now, but I kept being told that I was lucky. You know, the doctor said I was lucky. My family said I was lucky, you know, and I didn't feel lucky at all. I felt really, really unlucky, you know, and just kind of questioned why it had happened, and then everything just kind of went wrong. And I didn't know about PTSD, and I didn't know how to ask for help. It's something I'm still bad at now. I don't ever ask for help. I just felt like I was going to be a burden, you know, on my parents, and I'd already messed up at school, and I didn't want them worrying about me, so I just kept saying I was fine, and but I was really not fine at all. So I started drinking and taking drugs and not sleeping, which was one of the worst things about it. You know, every time I lay down, I would just kind of flash back to what had happened and just run it all over through my head again and again through my mind, and I couldn't get out of that. So that would happen when I was trying to read a book. So I'd be stuck on the same page for kind of hours, or try and watch a TV show and end up rewinding it again and again and again because I'd just completely forgotten what had happened. And it culminated in me hoarding a load of painkillers, and I was going to take them all as a way out of it. And I sat down to write my parents a note, just to explain why I was doing what I was doing. And I had got a book from the library quite recently back then, and it told you about a self-help technique, a kind of therapy, where you take the incident, the traumatic incident, and you change the people involved, and you change the location, and you change the outcome. You just basically change everything about it. And looking back now, I think it's just a distraction technique. But I sat down and I wrote Duchess, the character in We Begin at the End, the star of the book. And she kind of appeared on the page almost fully formed. I had this really strong image of this girl wearing a kind of an oversized cowboy hat and wearing old clothes, and having this name that made her a victim, you know, of bullies. And she was just very much, I just wrote kind of some scenes that didn't run together. It wasn't a story, it was just a few different paragraphs. And that got me through that night. Actually, I went to bed after that and slept for about 6 hours, which was the first kind of unbroken sleep I'd had since the incident. And I felt a bit better the next day. You know, it definitely wasn't a quick fix, because a few weeks after that I went out and got drunk and drove my car off the side of the road. So I found myself back in hospital being stitched back together again, and disappointed. You know, my mum was very disappointed, as you would be, you know, drink driving, but I couldn't tell her why and what was going on. So I went back to Duchess again and wrote some more, and that went on for probably a year until I felt okay enough to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And I read an article about a stockbroker in the newspaper, and to me, he had this great life. You know, he had a Ferrari, and he seemed to be very happy, very successful. And I thought, you know, that is the job for me. That's the life for me. And I'm terrible at maths, and I had no qualifications, and it was kind of like this stupid thing that no one told me, you know, that I couldn't do. So I paid for my exams and went into the city and managed to talk my way into a job, you know, kind of, which was really fortunate actually, because I don't think anyone else would have given me a chance, and they did, this company. And I I worked as a stockbroker for a few years and started to really enjoy it. You know, I started to make more money and got a girlfriend and, you know, just lived a life, you know, kind of felt a bit more back to normal. And so I stopped writing again, didn't think any more about that, just thought it was a way of getting me through this time. And then I worked my way into a trading desk, and my boss said to me, if you lose $20,000, you stop trading and we talk about what went wrong. And so I came in all full of energy and very excited, and quickly lost $2 million and didn't tell anyone, and didn't tell the people that I worked for, because I had a friend that worked in the back office, and I said to him, let's if you keep it quiet, I'll make it back, which is just, you know, madness. You know, it's kind of that gambler's mentality, you know, I can fix this before anyone finds out, which of course I couldn't. And so I went into work one day, and the bosses were waiting for me with some lawyers, and we sat down at this boardroom table and everything came out. And I'd started to make a bit more money by then, and I was getting the hang of it, and was a bit more confident in what I was doing. And they said to me, if you pay back half of it, we'll let you carry on working. We won't go to the police, which was really good of them, you know, because they could have gone to the police and I would have been in serious trouble. And they gave me a chance, and I signed a contract there and then, which was part non-disclosure, so I can't talk about the exact specifics, but I went home at 24 years old in $1 million of debt. And I was on the train going home, and I was just looking at this bit of paper, this contract I'd signed, and it kind of sunk in, you know, just how big it was and how much trouble I was in. And I didn't tell anyone again, because they, you know, they had this perception that I was happy and I was doing well, and I felt like I was a son that they could be proud of. And they're not pushy parents at all, you know, they're not like that. That's how I felt, and I wanted to keep that image up. And we were getting married at the time, me and my then fiance, and the wedding costs were kind of spiraling, because, you know, on the surface I was earning all this money and doing really well, and I didn't tell anyone. So I put the honeymoon on the credit card and things like that, and just kept digging myself into a bigger mess. And we'd be looking at churches in the day, and I'd be checking life insurance at night, because I was back right the way back again to exactly how I was just after I'd been stabbed. And mentally just was not good. You know, I was taking drugs again, drinking too much. And I went back to Duchess again, to writing, to this character, because that's how I survived the first time. And I wrote kind of every day, every evening after work. I'd get in sometimes, I'd do client entertaining and get in at 2 a.m. and then sit down and write, because I had to before I went to bed or I wouldn't sleep. And I got through it again, and we got married, and I carried on writing. And it took years to pay off that debt, and I eventually did. And then I read a book called The Last Child by John Hart, which is just the most brilliant crime kind of mystery thriller. And it's just beautifully written and so affecting and really inspiring, actually. And I, probably a week after I read it, I read an interview with John Hart, the author, and he talks about how he used to be a lawyer, and he turned his back on a really successful law career to write a book because he wasn't happy, you know. And it started to get me thinking, and I was called into my boss's office. I was about to turn 30, and I just quit there and then. And I said, I don't want to, you know, I've had enough. I don't want to work in the city anymore. And came home. My wife was pregnant at the time and a student, so we didn't really have any money coming in. And I came home and said, I'm going to write a book, you know. And this was the first she'd ever heard of anything like that. So you know, you can imagine the shock. You know, what have you done? So we sat up most of the night talking and made some big changes. Sold our car, sold the apartment that we lived in, and basically cut everything, you know, that was costing us money, and just a complete change in lifestyle. And we went to Spain and lived for a while because it was sunny and nice and by the sea and cheaper than London. And I got to work writing, and I wrote Tall Oaks, and I didn't know you needed an agent, didn't know you needed a publisher, didn't know anything about it, didn't know how difficult it was or how bad the odds are of ending up on a shelf somewhere. But I think by some stroke of luck, because I messed up. You know, when you go out to agents and you write down your query letter, kind of, and you put down, you know, you've done a course in creative writing or whatever like that. I had nothing to put on that letter, and I pitched Tall Oaks, my book, as a YA, young adult book, which it is definitely not. It's an adult mystery. And so I messed up everything, really. But thankfully, a few agents agreed to meet me. And then I signed with my agent, who I'm still with now. And Tall Oaks was published and won a fancy award. We went to this fancy dinner, and it was black tie, and there were all these big name authors there, Sunday Times bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers. And I was out of my depth, so I didn't write a speech or anything, because I was the longest of long shots. The first book did not sell well at all. You know, no one knew who I was or anything like that. And then they put it up on the screen, and it said winner underneath it. And so I was terrified, you know, because I went up on the stage, forgot to thank everyone, took my award back to the hotel room, where my wife just burst into tears, because it had taken a toll, you know, the past few years on her, and it had really taken a toll. And then that pretty much brings us up to date. So that is a very long answer to a very simple question, Shane.
So my kind of question, though, is, did Duchess play a role in your first two books then? Or is she kind of the longest running character that you've been thinking of that we are lucky enough to just now be getting her?
Yeah, so no, she had no role in it, and I didn't ever imagine sharing her story, because it felt so closely linked to mine. You know, although she's a girl living in Montana and I was in London, and you know, we're very different, obviously, and she's entirely fictional. It just felt so close, you know, closely related to everything bad that had happened. And I thought, this is just something I'll leave alone. And then I wrote the first two books, and I had a 2-book deal, and then I signed a new contract, and I kind of had this breathing space between books, and I had to decide what I was going to write next. And it was kind of calling, you know, every time I'd open my computer, my laptop, I'd see the file there, you know, waiting. It felt like it was waiting to be finished, waiting to be written. And I thought, I'll give it a go, but it's probably not a book, or, you know, I didn't know what to do with it. And I started writing, and then I emailed my editor and said I couldn't do it. And then, you know, I was supposed to deliver in a year, and then 3 years later, I still hadn't finished with it. And eventually did send something quite rough to my editor, and she helped me, you know, because it's unrecognizable as the book that sits behind me on the shelf. It was just this really rough story, but thankfully they gave me the chance, and they gave me, yeah, some leeway with it, you know, some freedom to write the story I wanted to write, because it doesn't fit that neatly into any genre, which can sometimes be difficult. I understand, you know, it needs to go somewhere, it needs to be shelved somewhere, it needs to attract readers. But I just wanted to write a year in the life of Duchess, a difficult year in this young girl's life and this policeman's life, and that's what I did, and that's why. And now here we are, and I get to talk to you about the book. It's very cool.
I mean, that is kind of the beauty of fiction, though, because like, we have a fiction section, we don't have a non-fiction section. So
Right.
With fiction, like, it can be pretty broad and still like have a perfect home.
Yeah, that's right. And I agonize over where to shelve it at the library where I work. And I end up putting it everywhere. So people
are
just
like,
can't. Yeah,
I found this book in history. Like, what does this do?
It is actually in history. It's everywhere, Shane. You can't you can't get away from it. And we've been doing click and collect, and people can't choose specific books, but they can put down a genre that they like, or they can put down another author. And without doubt, if I'm choosing your book, you will get my book. You can't, you just can't get away from it. And it's become a running joke, but my book is never on the shelves now. It is always out, which is nice.
God, I wish I had that freedom of just being like, okay, they just want a book, like, here we go. Like,
yeah, but I think it's really cool, because we've had so many messages from people that have found new readers, you know, and books that they would never have picked up. And so I think it's quite nice. So we experimented a while ago, back when the library was open normally, and just wrapped up books, so you can't see what's inside, and there's a very brief synopsis on the front, and that worked quite well. And I think that because so many people do judge books by covers, I know you're not supposed to, but cover designers make it that way, don't they? They make a beautiful cover, and then you want to read the book. And yeah, so it's been interesting, actually, really interesting.
So I want to talk about place, because I feel like I read your bio before I read the book, but then I didn't immediately pick up the book, so kind of forgot like all of your bio.
Yeah.
And I'm reading this book, and I get all the way to the end before I hit your bio again. And I was like, he doesn't live here? He's like, I would have bet $1 million that you were born and raised, like found hope, lost hope, like everything in California. Like you could have, like, I would not have guessed in 1,000,000 years that you were not a native, like California seaside town, like person.
That is the ultimate compliment. It really is. I can't tell you how much it means to me, because a lot of work went into it. But yeah, so the setting, when I'm reading, prefer to read something set a long way away from my life and my world, and the same is true with writing. But it goes back to when I was a kid, and I was looking for a place to put Duchess, when I was changing the setting. And my parents divorced quite young, and I missed my dad a lot. He was still around, but obviously not there every day anymore. And he took me and my brother on a holiday to Disney, which was just the best time of my life. I was probably about 7 or 8 at the time. And it was a memory that I clung to, because I saw there was the me before the stabbing, when I was happy and normal, and probably wasn't that, happy or anything like that, just the way I saw myself. And then the me after, who was totally different. And the memory I clung to of the before me was that holiday. So America is close to my heart. And we were in the line at Disney World, and there was a family from Montana in front of us, and they just painted this portrait of the most beautiful place on earth. They said, you have to come and visit. And it just stuck with me all this time. And yeah, so I put the story there, California, because I built, excuse me, I'm talking so much, aren't I? Just get some drink. One sec. Okay. Yeah, so California, I built this town that was perfect kind of 30 years ago. And it is the town where this terrible thing happens at the start of the book, where a little girl dies, and the person responsible is Walk's best friend, Vincent. That's not a spoiler or anything. That happens at the very beginning of the book. And that's the point where Walk is no longer happy, from that. So at 15 years old, this terrible thing happens, and he is kind of frozen, and he lives life trying to preserve this town, which he can't do, obviously, because things change, and developers are trying to buy land and build on it, and he keeps objecting. And every now and then the water comes and kind of erodes some of the cliffs, and Walk is unwell as well. And it's just kind of a metaphor, for him losing everything. And and then later on in the book, Duchess goes to Montana, and that's where she kind of comes into her own. She's always had such a difficult time, and then she gets to Montana, and all of a sudden she's got some space and some room to breathe and think, and and kind of lay down roots, which is something she's never done, because she's always been of the belief that anything good will be taken from her. And yeah, I just loved writing it. Really loved it.
I mean, it felt so much like even my hometown, which is like small rural Missouri. And there were so many kind of things that struck me about like kind of my childhood and about the way that the town works. And it felt so organic and so kind of everywhere, but yet somewhere so specifically at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. It was it was just a lot of work, I think. you know, setting a book somewhere you haven't visited, there's a huge amount of pressure to get it right and to make it authentic, because if you don't, the book, you know, you get pulled out of the story. Say, for example, if you were reading it and it was totally foreign, or I'd put in a sentence that didn't quite work, it would bring you out of the story and remind you that what you're reading is fiction. And that is, you know, exactly what I didn't want to do. So I spent years just kind of poring over research and reading books set in Montana and non-fiction and looking at maps and travel guides and just reworking it over and over. And I found a website where you can just listen to people talk. So for hours, it's as boring as it sounds, but for hours and hours you can like select a town and then just listen to someone read a transcript, and you can kind of pick up on speech patterns and things like that. And that helps massively. But what also helps is having a team like my editorial team at Henry Holt. They catch all my mistakes, and there are a lot of them. And I'm so grateful to them for it, because because the book wouldn't be the book it is without them. You know, it wouldn't be finished without them. They definitely saved me from myself and my mistakes.
Editors are so good at catching mistakes. Like, every time I talk to an author who mentions editors, I'm just like, oh.
I know, and it's some of the stuff they catch is kind of crazy. So my my second book, All the Wicked Girls, is set in Alabama in the mid-90s, and I give a specific date and I say there was a full moon, and the copy editor put a note next to it and said, I think you'll find that was a half moon. It's like, whoa, that is mad. But I love that kind of detail. I'm so impressed by it. I think it's you know, that's the level of detail, that's the level of madness that I like the editor to go to for me, which was nice.
Did you read 4th of July Creek when you were reading Montana books?
I've got it. I've got a copy, but it's still in my stuff. Really?
Yeah, it's really fantastic. It's a big book too. Like, that one, I loved spending time with that book as well. And I think that it draws a lot of comparisons to your book. So it might actually be better that you hadn't read it ahead of time, because I think it would have probably influenced your writing quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a go now.
Yeah.
And, I'll give it a read. And someone recommended 4321 by Paul Astor the other day, but that I've got a copy of that, and it's so big. So I need to clear my schedule. I need some time where I can just sit down and escape totally into the books. But it's time wise, isn't it? Because I'm forever bringing books home from the library, and I'm lucky enough to get sent lots of books as well. And I just spend all my days reading if I could.
Since your book does get categorized a lot with mystery, I'm wondering if you've become friends with any of the UK mystery authors that I love.
So give me some names and I'll tell you.
Ruth Ware, first and foremost. Love Ruth. Claire McIntosh. Who are some of my other favorites?
I'm with them, but I'm not. I was just I know them. Yeah.
You need to be friends with Claire. Ruth. I'm sorry, Ruth and Claire. They're both great.
They were at a festival before, but I did an event the other night with John Hart, which was because I got to tell John Hart the John Hart story, which was really cool, because he read the book quite early, and I got an email just popped up in my inbox from John Hart with a quote, and it was just, you know, after everything I'd been through, and I really fought the urge to email him back and say that, you know, he may have in some way helped to save my life, you know, because I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't read The Last Child, and I certainly wouldn't be here. And I didn't. I held that back for the third email or something like that after I'd sufficiently stalked him and made him befriend me. And it was really cool, actually, because we did the event the other night, and he invited me to come and stay on his farm that he lives in. And every now and then he gets together with some other authors, and they all have dinner and drinks. And one of the other authors is John Grisham, who lives right near. I know. And I thought it was one of those throwaway things, but it's actually, because it's videoed, I'm going to, you know, and he emailed me the invite as well. So I'm going to print a copy of the email, take it with me, turn up at the farm, and just move in for a while. That's my plan anyway. Yeah, and just stay. I'll stay with John Hart, go and Go and visit John Grisham. That's my new life, Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vicky said that The Last Child was exactly the book she thought of when reading your book. So
that's good. That that is the ultimate compliment.
Mm.
And yeah, I do try and rip off John Hart as much as possible.
You will have. So I got to do an event with John Grisham last summer, and he is so incredibly nice. Like, it was such a fun event. It was my first time getting to meet him. I've been working in books for years. And of course, I was like going into it. I was like, I am so scared right now. No, like, just throw that out the window. He is just such. And I mean, maybe he's not in person. Like, I don't know. Maybe
he's only nice to you.
Yeah. Like, let's just hope he's nice to you as well.
No, I went to an event in England. We have the Harrogate Crime Festival, which is a big festival in Yorkshire up north, and John Grisham was the star of one of the things. I got to see him talk, and he just came across as the nicest man. And it's sponsored by a brewery company that make beer, and they had a John Grisham special beer made, which was really cool. Yeah, it wasn't that nice, but John was really nice.
Yeah. I want to talk about characters. So first off, I want to ask you about the names of the characters. So Walk and Duchess are such unique names, but there's also, like, Duchess's last name is Radley. And like, as a reader, I can't help but read the last name Radley and automatically think of Boo Radley from To Kill a Mockingbird. So I was wondering if that was on purpose, and if the names Walk and Duchess were also kind of, if there was literary influence in those decisions.
So the Radley thing was entirely accidental, and I didn't realize till someone pointed it out to me quite late, and then I liked it. I really like that there's almost like a tribute, an unintentional tribute. But Duchess came about because my grandfather was a really big Johnny Cash fan, and I grew up listening to A Boy Named Sue, and I named Duchess with that song in mind. I gave her this name that she's a girl that will kind of shy away and wants to live a quiet life and just try and survive each day. And she's got this name that kind of makes her stand out. So she really doesn't like it. And it just felt really right for her, to give her this name, and it makes her tougher without a doubt. All the negative comments and things, they could ruin her, but she chooses to be strong, and she has no real identity because she doesn't know who her father is, and she gets tasked with doing a school project and looking into her family tree, and she finds a link on her mother's side to an outlaw, like a really tenuous, distant link, and that's so she reinvents herself. It gives her something to cling on to, and a way to make herself feel tougher and braver. And I kind of wrote her tough because I wanted to be tough at the time, and I made her angry because I was angry, and a lot of it was projecting, onto her. But as for Walk, he felt right as well. As I wanted him to have a nickname, when he was a teenager, which is Walk, and because he's so stuck in the past, he never lets that go. Even though he's the chief of police now, and he is in a powerful position, relatively, he still lets everyone call him Walk because he likes to feel like that version of himself. So it all felt right, it all felt fitting, and I read, it's drawn comparisons. Some people say it's a bit Western, in the way it's written, and I read a lot of Cormac McCarthy and things like that, and I like the way they name characters, and I'm a strong believer in gut feeling when I'm writing, and if it feels right, it goes into the book, and sometimes it feels right and then doesn't, so it comes back out again, and I'll do that, over years and years, and lie awake worrying about certain sentences not feeling right, and change them. And my wife thinks that you know, I'm a bit crazy with it, you know, because it becomes a bit obsessive, because I'm a terrible sleeper. So I'll get up in the middle of the night to change a certain paragraph, you know, the order or structure or something like that, because if I don't give it everything, you know, if I haven't given it absolutely everything, then I don't want it to be published, you know, because people go out and there's a lot of books to choose from, and I'm fortunate that they pick up mine and that they spend their money on it, and I want to have earned that, you know, that. So yeah, it's torturous, but the payoff is worth it at the end.
So my very first question that I wrote down when I was taking notes was that this is a book that has swagger. I think is possibly my perfect adjective for the book. And yeah, like I don't think I've really read a book that had so much, like, just like you could feel the way it would walk, like in a pair of jeans. And I'm wondering, because I did also pick up on the kind of notes of the Western, because I've actually recommended it to people that like Westerns. I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got a book. Yeah. But I'm wondering, like, did you have a goal when you were writing? Like, did you want the book to have swagger? Did you want it to have the heart that it does? Like, where did you think that this book would take you when you started it?
I didn't give any thought to anyone ever reading it. Even when I was writing it and I knew I was going to deliver it at some point, it was kind of the last thing on my mind, you know, how would it feel as a story, you know, and how I knew how the story would end. Because at the beginning of the book, Duchess's mother, one of the few things that she teaches her is that selfless acts are what make a good person. And I knew Duchess was going to spend the book looking for her selfless act, and I knew she was going to find it at the end, and I knew it was going to be difficult to write and maybe difficult to read. So I knew where I was going. But as for the general tone of it, it just, like I said before, you know, it was just going to be a year in the life. It's a snapshot of this girl and this policeman at a really difficult, interesting time in their life. And I say interesting because Duchess is kind of, though she's had no childhood, she is still a child, you know, and she, you get these contrasting scenes where she's trying to act tough and declaring herself an outlaw, you know, and people are kind of looking at her like they don't know how to take her, and is she okay? You know, she can seem a bit crazy. And then on the flip side, you get her getting ready for her first prom, which I loved writing, and she gets she has a suitor in a boy named Thomas Noble, and he couldn't have picked someone worse to go for, you know, to try and court, because she's really mean to him and has no interest in him and wants him to go away, but he's persistent, and they kind of have this really sweet friendship, and I wouldn't say first love, but close. And so it was kind of wrapping up the story, you know, the year in their lives, and seeing where it took me, and seeing where it, you know, at its heart there is a murder, you know, and there's a court scene at the end, and it's a lot of it is about Walk trying to, you know, hang on to his friend and the memory of his friend, and his friend Vincent has gone to jail for 30 years, and Walk expects Vincent to come back the same 15-year-old that went away, which of course isn't going to happen. And yeah, it was a book about, I suppose I know all too well about, you know, the shadow of past mistakes and things like that, and how difficult it is to outrun them or deal with them or find a way to live with them. And the book is a lot about that, you know, it's about this terrible thing that happened and how it affects everyone in different ways, and how some people are able to move on and some people just aren't. And I was very nearly one of those people that just couldn't. So I feel like I was better qualified to write those characters than I would have been had nothing bad happened to me, I suppose.
So I realize that we are well into the audience Q&A portion of the event. So okay. I will remind the audience that if you have questions, go ahead and type those up. I've been kind of weaving them in. But we'll take a question from Anne. So Anne says, We Begin at the End was my favorite of all the books I read last year, which that's just amazing because I don't even know if I got an early copy and I don't even know if I had it last year. But yeah, it's such a brilliant book. So I agree with Anne. So the question from Anne is, who would you cast for Walk in the movie?
That is the question I get asked. You know, because so it came out about, I think it was about a week ago that Disney have optioned the TV series. So I've been having conversations, and that was a conversation that they asked me in my first Disney meeting. they said, who would you want to play the characters and who would you want to play Duchess? And I jokingly said that I wanted to play Duchess, but it wasn't entirely a joke, because you know they can do magical things with special effects, you know, and things like that. But they laughed about it, so we'll forget that. I struggle with it. Quite a few people have suggested David Harbour for Walk. He is the cop from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a good Walk. I can't ever see them as anything else, you know, as anything other than my characters that are in my head. So it's going to be a learning curve, I think. So I don't know if there's a Duchess out there. You know, Walk is probably an easier cast. Duchess, I don't know. What do you think, Shane? Have you seen? It's tough, isn't it? It's really tough.
It is, because I'm not super familiar with like young actors.
Yeah, same.
But I know Anne's our sales rep. That's why she read it early. I knew I recognized your name, Anne. It was like bookseller, sales rep. Yeah. But I definitely went to middle school with a girl who would have been absolutely perfect in the role of Duchess. Like, as I was reading it, I was reminded of her, and I haven't thought of her in like years. But she just kind of had that, like, kind of doesn't give a fuck kind of attitude, and like saying like I'm an outlaw, like that would absolutely be something that she would have said. So
yeah, it's nice actually. I've had quite a few messages from people that have known a Duchess, or you know, been to school with a Duchess, or see themselves in Duchess, you know, their younger selves, and she seems to resonate, which is nice. You know, it's really, really lovely to hear that. And a lady messaged me who'd had a very similar childhood, you know, without some of the extreme things that happen in the book, but it was just lovely, you know, to hear from, you know, people that can relate.
Actually, you know, I just watched Dairy Girls for the first time, and I could see actually almost any of those.
Okay, I haven't seen it. I'm gonna have to watch it.
So they are all like, it's surprising when you find out what the actual ages of the actresses are that are playing these teenage girls.
Right.
One of them is also on Bridgerton, and I think she's like 28. Wow. And I was like, she's like 13, like that. I guess I easily led to like suspend my disbelief and just be like, yeah, like that's fine.
Good genes, I think. Yeah. So
yeah, one of those girls.
Yeah, so basically we can, the pool has got bigger. We don't have to find a 13-year-old, because we are now casting you, me, and Anne. You know, we'll go to Disney and we'll say we found them. You know,
I do have training as an actor, so
well then you can play more than one role.
Yeah,
Shane, we'll get you in.
I don't think I could be Walk. Like, I'm fairly certain that I do not have the swagger to play Walk. People would be like, that's fake. Don't believe it. So, gosh, I feel like we've talked about so many things, and I'm so like happy and excited to celebrate this book. But let's do. I'm super curious about this. So, the very beginning of the book, the prelude. At what point did that become like the start of the book?
Well after. I avoid writing the first part of the book. I'll start wherever I feel like starting on that day, because there's a lot of pressure, isn't there, on the opening? It's the people will often turn to the front page and flick through a few pages before they decide whether they want to commit, their time and money to reading the rest. So it came a long way after I'd written the bulk of the story. I knew I was going to write it, but I think it was about recognizing the younger characters, after having written them as adults. It was Walker's described as 15 and fearless, although his knees are shaking, so he kind of came to me later. I spent a long time writing Walker, and I wanted him to be this moral compass for Duchess, to keep her, to give her someone to kind of cling on to and keep her aiming in the right direction. Although they kind of have this lovely friendship that Duchess would not recognize, probably, or wouldn't admit that Walker's this influence in her life. And and I wanted to show them at that age, I wanted to show that Walker was still that person, and he wanted to be a cop back when he was 15. And probably almost after I'd finished writing the book, I went back and put this scene in, this kind of key scene at the beginning.
It did immediately grab my attention. So
yeah, that's nice to hear, actually. And I called that scene "We Begin at the End." It was just it was a small title over the prologue, and I didn't give the book a title. I just called it "Book" and sent it off in the hope that they would take "We Begin at the End." And yeah, my editor suggested it, and I think it's a perfect fit, the title, and it doesn't tell you too much, and it doesn't fit neatly, it's not necessarily a crime title, and I like that about it. And it just it looks really good, doesn't it? The cover, I think that they've done such a good job with it.
Yeah. So are we done, or are you done with the character of Duchess? Do you think
I think I am done for now. I think I am. I've got an idea for the next book, and I'm writing it at the moment. So I'd need to do something very credible, and not because it's on TV or something like that, or there was a call for it. It'd have to be something I could properly do with Duchess. But I just like that we just had a quick look at her life and left her. And but yeah, there's more and more questions are coming in about what happens next, and people need to know. And I don't know, basically.
Yeah. Well, I just read The Committed by Viet Nguyen, who we actually hosted last night. And when I read The Sympathizer, I was like, oh, like, this is such a phenomenal character, but it's done, a little more.
Yeah.
But Viet said, this was just a character that I couldn't kick, that kept new things kept coming back to me. And I mean, I don't want to beg for Duchess to continue, but she was such a fantastic character that if we see her pop up in future stories, I know that it would be, I would like to see her as an adult. I would like to see what happens to her and how she maintains.
Yes, I think I would as well. But who knows which way she'll go.
Yeah.
And she's got she curses a lot, doesn't she? A hell of a lot.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
I imagine that'll only get worse as she gets older. So. It'd have to be edited, censored.
Yeah, it doesn't go away. And so maybe if you did write her, it would just be a whole bunch of cuss words. So
yeah, but maybe they could have evolved. Maybe she'll go for the worst ones now. I'm always wary of it, that because some people don't like it at all, and they say, why does she have to talk like that? And I think we know why she talks like that and why she is the way she is, from reading the story. And it never bothered me, writing it. It just she felt right. She felt like she would be like that, and she can be quite abrasive and quite hard to love. And and I think that she should be, and she would be, you know, given the life that she's had.
Yeah, I think it would feel vulgar if it weren't done so, like, aptly. Like, when she talks, it feels right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even feel like she's like using them because she knows that they are words that she shouldn't be using. She just uses them because that is how she can best express herself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly how I felt when I was writing her, you know. She and I knew she would be quite difficult, you know, and she'd be quite, you kind of, whether you liked her or not, I hope that people would want her to get her happy ending, you know, and feel like she deserves something better.
Yeah. And I know you were in the throes of building a writing shack and
Yes.
doing a tour, but have you started working on a new novel?
I have, yes. I've been I have. It's supposed to be delivered at Christmas, but I'm notorious for missing deadlines. So,
So 3 years from now, I'll get the next book.
3 years from now, so 4 years from now, we'll be talking again. Hopefully,
Great.
Yeah. And I'll have completely grey hair, and the writing shack will have fallen down. And yeah, no, I'll be living at John Hart's farm by then. So I'll be co-writing with John Grisham probably. Like I'll have my name kind of greyed out like James Patterson's, you know, his people. That's the dream, Shane. That's right.
And we will no longer be in a pandemic, hopefully, so I will have less gray hair because.
Yeah. It feels like it's never going to end, though, doesn't it? It does. Now I wonder when it will end. I always think about it. You know, we're reopening the library properly on April the 12th. You know, so people will come flooding back in. So I just don't want to do another national lockdown. We're just coming out of the third one, and what is, you know, promises to be the final one. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe the more people that get vaccinated, it will just go away. But it's been strange, hasn't it? We've had such a strange year because I've had the book come out. We've had a baby, got a daughter who's just started teething, perfectly timed for all my late night 1 a.m. Zooms and things. She just, I'll go inside in a bit and get into bed and she'll wake up, which is just perfect. Yeah, so, and we've had building work going on, and so it's been full on, and homeschooling the kids, and I don't write that well when there's a lot going on, you know. I need to be able to shut the noise out, and the world has felt very noisy, hasn't it? And there's been so much tragedy, and it's been so tough for everyone.
Yeah. It's also hard to be creative in this time. So anyone who is actually kind of producing without being forced to produce, bravo. Like,
yeah, I'm amazed. Yeah, I'm amazed when I manage it at the best of times. So yeah, it's definitely affected everyone, and but people are still reading books.
Yeah,
they are, which is a good thing, and they kept the library open over here because it was deemed an essential service, which I thought was really good because people need, you know, a lot of people live alone, and books are such a great escape. You know, I've had so many messages about We Begin at the End, you know, from people that have felt able to leave, you know, the world behind for a while and spend some time with Duchess and walk in their world, and it's nice.
Yeah, it is really good to escape into a book like this and leave the world behind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pop up the banner one more time to remind people that signed copies. Let me show this. So first off, beautiful cover, absolutely well done. And then the book plate, I'll zoom in on this, is so like wonderfully designed to match
really
the cover. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah. So yeah, they FedEx those to me. There were 2,000 of them, so I had a long weekend of signing, and it's really nice to see one in the flesh. So they did actually make it back to the US, which is lovely. I'm hoping I can come over at some point, and I'll come and see you and sign them in the flesh.
Absolutely, we would absolutely love to have you in St. Louis. Write a book set in St. Louis. That'd be perfect. I'll help you write I'll help you make sure that it's accurate.
It's a deal. We've got this on video now, so you've just committed to it.
I know. like, thankfully, I'm a pretty honest person, so everything I say in these events is like, yeah, I would
Yeah.
stand by it. So
Excellent. Well,
sometimes, sometimes
I
I say things because I'm very tired, but yeah, I'll stand by
can
this.
relate. I can definitely relate to that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I want to congratulate you on the book, on all the success the book has gotten. Number 14 on the New York Times bestseller list. Number 1 any next pick, the Barnes & Noble Book of the Month, I think is another
Yep.
thing.
Book club. Yep.
Yeah. So just incredible success. I am so excited that I will be able to talk about this book to so many people. So, audience, if you're watching, I know you're watching. If you can, when you read this book, find me. Let's talk because I would love to chat with you about this book. And I want to thank you, obviously, Chris, for being here, for your excellent team for making this event happen. And I want to thank the audience for being here tonight.
Thank you, and thanks to you, Shane, for making it so easy. You know, these events, they're not always this much fun. So thank you for being so easy to chat to.
Absolutely. It is really such a pleasure. All right. Well, have a good night, everyone. We will see you again very soon.